All right, looks like we're live. Hey, team. We are getting into some martial powers here on Monday lunch. Give me a few moments here to check my signal and do my spiel, and then we'll get into this. Check my... Holy Hannah, that is loud. Welcome to Volume. If you follow me on Twitter, I've just posted that I'm live on Twitter. I'm at Twitter at Phil Kearney, so be welcome to follow along. I'm going to take a moment here to just punch my signals across the Discords. So if you give me I'll just spiel here real quick what I am got going on. My name is Phil. Hey, I build role-playing game supplements, specifically right now for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. I publish the content that I produce on the DMsGuild. There are links in the description down below to various different supplements that I've built in the past. You can click on any of them to go into the product page. They're all 100% free previews. So if you're on a mobile phone, when you get to the product page for each individual supplement, you can click on the eye icon, which is on the far right side of the screen. Or you can, if you're on a desktop or a tablet, when you get to the product page, it'll have the picture of the cover, and then underneath it, it'll have full preview. Either way, eye or full preview, you can click on those. It'll give you a full 100% preview, cover to cover. There's about 150 illustrations throughout the products that are listed in the description down below. If you're an art enthusiast, you're welcome to look at all the illustrations. If you're a D&D or RPG enthusiast, you're certainly welcome to look at all the mechanics that we built out. If you think some of the stuff that we built here is cool, I would, of course, appreciate you purchasing any of them to further motivate production of similar work in the future. So I'm going to rearrange my bits. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. Best way for folks to let YouTube know that I should be pushed out to more people, for folks to see what we got going on. And with that, let's get into our mess today. So let's see. Okay, great. So the request is from Tyler, friend to the channel, playtester. Was asking about a teleportation pouncing build, which is essentially you teleport to a target, you deal damage to them. That's essentially the build. In 3rd edition, these were called Shadow Pouncers because of the prestige class. The Telflamar Shadow Pouncer was a variant rogue that when you teleport, when you arrive at your destination, you could deal damage to whatever was within reach of you. So we're taking that general idea. This is unscripted. We'll probably have scripty stuff in the future once this thing is published, but for now we're just going to do some freewheeling. So let's see. Without diving into the specifics about martial powers, we're on episode 50 right now, I want to say. Is that true? Hold on. Wow, episode 51. So we're at episode 51. So the past 50-some episodes, I've talked over and over again about how powers work, how the classes fold together, how multi-classing works. Specifically, we're going to look at teleportation builds. So teleport. There are 2 class options that we have built in here that really work well with teleportation. It's the Martial Trickster subclass that we've built for Rogue. So the Rogue, the Fighter, and the Barbarian are martial classes. And if you take the subclass, hey Hornetica, if you take the subclass option out of the Martial Powers book here, it gives you, for the Barbarian, the Path of the Raging Fury. Fighter is the Martial Champion, and then for Rogue is the Martial Trickster. Each of these are their own specific subclass with subclass options. Basically, they work a lot like Arcane Trickster and the Eldritch Knight, but it's using the power system that we have in this supplement instead of spellcasting. So we are using for this teleportation pounce build. There's a couple different approaches. So one approach that we can go with is just straight Rogue using the Martial Trickster class out to 13th level. When you get access to the Swift Pounce feature at 13th level, whenever you use a bonus action to channel a sustained power, you can teleport up to 10 feet per mana sustained to a location you can see and make an attack with advantage immediately after teleporting. So as a rogue, 13th level, let's just go with a rogue. Let's just go with rogue 13 martial trickster. We're just gonna flesh out the scaffold real quick of the powers that you would have at 13th level as a martial trickster to really maximize this kind of a build. So let's look at the basics for a martial powers character of any of these classes: barbarian, fighter, monk, paladin, ranger, rogue. All of them have this same half-caster power curve of first rank powers at first, second at 5th, third rank at 9th level, 4th rank at 13th level, and then 5th rank at 17th level. And the martial trickster Swift Pounce feature clicks in at 13th level just as you gain access to 4th rank powers. You have a total of 12 powers known, and a martial trickster uses martial points, which means you have 13 points per long rest. So we've got rank 4, mana 13, known 12. What's some of the cool goodies that we get for taking the martial trickster feature? This isn't the only way to build this. This is just the first way we're going to go look at this real quick. Hopefully we'll have time to look at 2 or 3 different builds in the hour or so that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and set a timer here real quick. 20 minutes on the block. Bam. Let's see how far we get in 60. So here's some of the features. Okay, great. So you get the channeling class feature, which allows you to channel martial powers. You start off with mana, and then you start off with martial powers, right? So we're going to skip fast. If you look at the range or at the Ranger Skirmish build that we had created 2 weeks ago, you can see how at first level, when you don't have a lot of mana, but you have a number of powers, so like at first level, you don't have squat for mana. So you're not going to be able to use this stuff a lot. So, but you have 2 powers that you know. So at first level, my recommendation is always to take extra feats or to take a first rank power, a sustained power that you can then lock, so that that power basically becomes permanent for you until you take a long rest. So there's a slew of sustained powers that you can take, like Dire Impact lets you add your channeling modifier to your damage rolls. That's not bad. Elemental Resistance is something you can lock if you're in a campaign that has like a lot of, like, say, lava and stuff like that, fire or lightning, thunder resistance. That's useful. Lycanthropy is a fun thing to give you some natural weaponry and advantages on some stealth perception checks and strength checks. Armor, Power Shield, these are useful first rank sustained powers that you can learn. I would say that Rogue Stance is super useful. A rogue would automatically have it, but any other class could certainly benefit by locking Rogue Stance to be able to have access to dash, disengage, and dodge actions as a bonus action, just like a rogue would. That would disable, when you lock a sustained power, you can't lose concentration on it, but it reduces the amount, the level of ranks of power that you can channel by the amount of levels locked. So if you are a 5th level character and you have access to 2nd rank powers, and you were to lock a sustained power, a 2nd rank sustained power, that costs 2 mana. That's your max rank. So if you lock that, you've just cut yourself off from using any other martial powers while that's locked. You could leave it unlocked and just keep it tapped. So just like concentrating on a spell like a wizard would, you could still cast instant effects. So too, with martial powers, you could channel instant powers like strikes, reactions, and stuff like that. But every time you take damage and any time you make a saving throw, it's at risk of burning the powers that you're sustaining that you haven't locked. So you maintain flexibility in being able to continue channeling other things while maintaining concentration on these sustained effects. But if you lose concentration, the sustained effect ends and that mana that you've already committed to those effects are burned at first level. When, say, a rogue only has 1 point and a ranger or paladin only has 2, those are high risk propositions. You could easily take. You could get winged for like some sort of cold damage or something, and have to make a saving throw. And if just roll an 8 or something like that, bam, you've just lost your mana for the day, and you can't use any more martial powers. So some low cost sustained powers that you can lock are useful, but since you only get 2. You only learn 2 powers at first level. I always recommend taking some of the feats. Here's a list of useful feats that you can take: crossbow expert, dual wielding, fighting initiative to gain a maneuver from the martial powers from the battle masters list, which is ironic because of the martial powers that we're using, but it's still a thing you can do. Revenant blade, savage attack. Those are useful feats that you can just pick up and then drop when you don't need them later on, and it frees up your 1st through 4th level to take whatever feats that you want by just tacking on powers. But we're not going to start with our 1st level build. I'm just talking about when you start on the path of martial powers and you don't have a lot of mana to back up what you want to do. Locking sustained powers gives you basically a permanent, basically like a choose your own feat, and then of course feats as well. So you have 2 of those. You could either have 2 extra feats at 1st level, or you could have 1 sustained power that you've locked and another feat, or you could have 2 different types of sustained powers that you could swap between as your mana would allow. So, but we're going to build out to higher levels. So the things that a rogue can do that helps buff out that mana. So at 13th level as a rogue, 13 mana for the day isn't a lot. 1st rank power is 1 mana, 5th rank power be 5 mana, 3rd rank power 3 mana. So that 13 mana isn't going to go a long way by itself. But there's some cool stuff that we can do with the Martial Trickster class that manipulates that mana pool. First off is Empowered Sneak Attack. So at 3rd level, when you have 2 sneak attack dice, 2d6, you can sacrifice those 2d6 damage, get rid of those sneak attack dice, and instead gain a temporary point of mana that you can spend on I'm going to actually open up a second window here so we can work on different planes at the same time. So I'm going to go with the main class down here. Empowered Sneak Attack. There we go. And then that'll take us down into the strike powers. Beep, beep. This will all be hyperlinked once it's published. And the previews that you see down below actually are hyperlinked as well. So you can jump around inside the document using the table of content in the previews if you want. But this isn't in preview yet, of course. So, but you gain at 3rd level, you have 2d6 sneak attack dice. You can instead drop those 2d6 dice and gain a free point of mana that you could use to cast or to channel any strike power that you have learned for free. So at 3rd level, you would have, as a rogue, you'd have 3 mana, which isn't a lot. Again, not a lot. And you can know a total of 4 powers. So what you could do is 3rd rank, you're still only 1st rank. You could pick up 2 or 3 feats. If you lock your 1 rank of power, you wouldn't be able to use a strike because your maximum rank would be reduced to 0. So even if you had a strike power, if you've locked your sustained effects, you wouldn't be able to use a strike. So again, recommending feat usage to the earlier levels, and then like say 2 feats, and then you can pick up 2 strikes. So every time that you successfully sneak attack, you could either do the extra 2d6 damage, or you could pick up 1 or 2 strike powers, like Shocking Strike, for instance. It deals. You only have 1 rank. It's 1 point of mana. That's for free. So you deal your weapon damage, plus you deal. You have a d6 at this rank. So instead of 2d6, you do d6 damage, and you would remove the ability of the creature that you hit from using reactions. It's like you could camp on a caster and just keep Shocking Strike on that caster, and they're not going to be able to counter spell your casters in the party. Like everyone always looks at Monk as an amazing class because it disables the spellcasters. One of the reasons why you want to disable the spellcasters is so that they can't counterspell your cleric or your wizard that's in the party. Well, all you have to really do is disable their reactions. So by sitting on them with Shocking Strike, as long as you can hit them, you're going to be able to disable the reactions. So you as a DM, you're going to want to think about having multiple minions. You don't want to have just a single boss fighting a team of characters. That's just bad DMing in general. What you want is to have multiple foes, or if it is one big creature, like an Ettin or something that has multiple action economies that can act independently from each other. So if you're going to have a Shocking Strike, that's going to commit your strikers to locking down each individual caster that they're facing. Once you get into the mid-tier, you can have mooks, just like generic minion adds to the boss, that they have two things. They have ranged cantrips that cause saving throws to disable people's concentration, and they have reactions to cast counter spells. Those are the two cheesy ways that a DM can have spellcasting adds cause trouble for your team while still allowing the boss to be able to hammer away at people. So I want to just toss in the comments here. Nitro, hey man, just now tuning in. Glad to hear you. I've played I've played a few teleport behind you builds, so I thought I'd give a look at what you're making here. Take a look. Awesome, glad to have you. So yeah, so we're just walking through what a rogue can do right now, because the rogue is the first build option that we're looking at today. Right, so that's empowered strikes, right? So at 3rd level, you can exchange your 2 sneak attack dice to get a free first rank strike. So it does d6 damage plus something else. And then at 11th level, it advances to 4d6. If you could still spend just 2d6 to get 1 point of mana, or you could burn all your sneak attack dice and get 2 mana for you to be able to either, like, say, trigger a disarming strike and a, say, shocking strike if that's your go-to. Let's just go ahead and plug shocking strike. It's a first strike equals shocking strike. We're just going to lock that in because that's a really good debuffer to cause the trouble. It's essentially the same as Shocking Grasp, the cantrip. Shocking Grasp, that you hit somebody with your Shocking Grasp, you deal some lightning damage to them, and they lose their reaction. This is basically allowing you to cast that through your weapon attack. A rogue, again, gets to sacrifice sneak attack dice to do it for free. Other classes spend a point of mana to do that. So everything in this book is a little less efficient than the core. Like, it's more efficient to have a cantrip to Shocking Grasp to get rid of somebody's reaction, but you have to buy into Shocking Grasp as either a full caster, which isn't martial, or a subclass that gets you access to it, or you have to burn a whole feat to get access to that. So this is there's checks and balances that allows the flexibility that this martial power system allows you to have access to at a cost that's different from typical builds. So everything that we have inside of this book is curving out with things that already exist inside of 5e. We're just approaching them differently and allowing us to combine them to be able to create more efficient builds overall. So that's the idea there. I can tell that I'm already just tangenting all over the place, so please forgive the effort. It's I just like talking about this stuff, and these things are kind of an excuse to do that. So we have the empowered sneak attack. So anytime you can hit something for a strike, which is essentially a free strike power. Power over precision at 9th level. Again, we're going to take this to 13th level for just a 13th level build so you can see how this thing works. But power over precision at 9th level, you can reduce the amount of sneak attack dice you have at all. And instead, for every d6 that you give up, you gain an extra point of mana. So at 13th level, you have 7d6 sneak attack dice. If you're in a setting, or if you anticipate your encounters to not be combat focused, you can burn all your sneak attack dice, and instead of having 13 mana, you can then have 20 mana. You'd have 13, and then every time you burn a sneak attack die, you can recover a point of mana. So if you burn down your 13 mana down to 6, you can then get rid of all your sneak attack dice and go back up to 13 again. At the end of a short or long rest, you get all your sneak attack dice back, any mana that you had not used that were gained this way are lost, but you've just reset all your sneak attack dice. So if you have a typical 2 short rest day, you've got your 13 mana plus a potential extra 14 mana over the course of a normal day. As 5th edition calculates a day of adventuring, you could potentially have up to 27 mana, which is coincidentally right on par with what a ranger and a paladin would have at 13th level. They would have 26 mana. So you'd be giving up your sneak attack ability to have as much mana power as a paladin or a ranger would, for instance. But you're still a rogue. But you're disabling your sneak attack to be able to have that. Or you keep your sneak attack dice, and at 13th level, you've got 76. That means you'd be able to sacrifice up to 6 sneak attack dice. You'd still have 1d6 left over, but then you'd have 3 mana for you to be able to spend on any strike that you know up to 3rd rank for free. So let's go ahead and see what fun little sneak attacks. Let's see what kind of sneak attacky type of fun stuff we might have in here. Asium Strike is something that I ganked from the Blood Hunter. Your weapon deals radiant damage, and you add, in this case, you'd add 3 power dice, which at 13th level would be a d8, so it'd be 3d8 plus your 1d6 plus for your sneak attack. And the creature becomes basically fairy fire lit. It gets rid of invisibility and concealment. And they have to make a wisdom saving throw, or any kind of illusion or shape-changing effects that are targeting the hit creature, they end. So Asium Strike is actually a pretty good one to have. And that's only 2nd rank. Holy crap. Hold on. 2 strike equals Asium Strike. That's good for neutralizing invisibility. That's its primary purpose, to make it easier for the rest of your team to knock this dude down. Let's see. And then you got Stunning Strike. It's the same thing as the Monk, except that it costs 3 mana instead of 1 key. And it would do 3d8 damage on a hit. You have to make a Constitution saving throw, or they are stunned. But the difference is, it's kind of like Hold Person, in that they remain stunned until they can succeed a Constitution saving throw at the end of each of their turns. So it lasts longer than Stunning Strike, but it's a hell of a lot more expensive than Stunning Strike. So 3 strike equals Stun Strike. But again, if you replace 6d6 sneak attack dice, you get it for free. So maybe that's to your advantage, that these are the things that you can decide to mix up for yourself as you build. But at 13th level, we'll have 12 total. So we've already burned through 3 strikes. So I'm just going to leave those strikes as they are. I don't want to pick up any more of them. The other feature that we get from a monk, from a rogue at 13th level is Swift Pounce. At 13th level, whenever you use a bonus action to channel a sustained power, you can teleport up to 10 feet per mana sustained to a location that you can see and make an attack with advantage immediately after teleporting. So at 13th level, a rogue has 4th rank, which means you can sustain up to 4 mana worth of sustained powers, and you could lock them all down if you wanted to. So the fun thing about this Swift Pounce is that it's made with advantage, which means that if you're using a melee weapon you're proficient with, it's a light weapon anyway, it's automatically going to trigger sneak attack as a result of you teleporting. So every time you use so sustained powers can be triggered by standard actions and bonus actions. So you could technically trigger the same sustained power twice, which normally wouldn't be that useful, except that there are a number of useful sustained powers that you can learn. For example, very specifically, we have, where is it? Meow, 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 deflection, downtrodden, footwork, faint. These are reactions. Hold on, let me get down to sustained powers. 1st rank, cost 1, equals elemental resistance. There we go. When you channel this power, choose one type of damage: acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder. You gain resistance to the type of damage and gain advantage on saving throws to reduce the damage taken of the chosen damage type. You can channel this power more than once simultaneously, choosing a different type of damage with each channeling. So use this in combination with Swift Pounce. So let's just pick this one up because it's useful. Not only is this elemental resistance useful in general, but come back here. Sustain equals elemental resistance. So if you pick up elemental resistance, our action loop here then becomes, you've got your normal attacks, and then as a, since you can channel sustain powers as a bonus action, you have your normal actions, and then as your bonus action, you trigger, you channel elemental resistance. Say you just choose fire damage. You're now resistant to fire damage. You're sustaining 1 point of mana for that sustained effect. So you would be able to teleport 10 feet, and when you arrive at your destination, you can make an attack with advantage immediately after teleporting. It doesn't have to be a melee attack. It could be, if you have a ranged weapon, you could teleport 10 feet and then make a ranged attack. So you're letting yourself pop, 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 bounce like that. The next round, you could pick up lightning as a resistance. You're now sustaining 2 mana, and you're resistant to both fire and lightning damage. You're now sustaining 2 powers, so your next round you could teleport 20 feet, and at the end of that teleport, again, you would be able to attack with advantage. And if it's a light weapon or a ranged weapon, you'd get your sneak attack. You could then use your sneak attack each of these times to burn down your sneak attack dice of 66, and you could instead, say, use Stunning Strike or Asium Strike or Shocking Strike, any one of those 3 with 3 mana for free to do 3d8 damage plus your spare d6 from the sneak attack. So you're getting these bonus effects on top of everything else. And when you're teleporting with this with Swift Pounce, you don't have to be adjacent to an enemy. You're just teleporting as a movement, kind of like dash or disengage. You're just jumping to another location and you're hitting something on top of it. So then the third round comes around, and say you pick up cold. So you now have cold, fire, and lightning. You're now resistant to all 3 of these things. At 13th level, you can sustain up to 4 mana, so you now have 3 mana sustained. Your maximum distance you can teleport is 30 feet, and when you make your hop, you can then make an attack with advantage, triggering a sneak attack. Maybe you want to convert some of the sneak attack into another into another stunning strike if you choose. Up to you. And then finally, since you're 13th level, you can channel up to 4. At 4th rank, in the 4th round, as your bonus action, you could, say, become immune to acid. But each round, you don't have to be doing this. If you keep stacking up the amount of mana you're sustaining, it lets you teleport further, right? So each round, once you stack up those 3, like instead of doing that, we could dip into a higher rank. Let's dip into something that's a higher rank to see the fun type of stuff that we can do. Like, for example, Opportunist. While this power is sustained, when you take the attack action, you can forgo any number of attacks during your turn to gain an equal number of additional reactions, limited to 1 per turn, including your attack during your turn, to gain an equal number of additional reactions that can be used to make opportunity attacks. So basically, when you take the attack action, you can choose to remove as many of those attack actions from your action as you want and stack those up as potential additional opportunity attacks. Those opportunities may not arise, so there's a bit of a gamble that's involved with this. As an opportunist, you're allowing especially as a rogue, since currently in 5th edition, we're able to, every time another creature takes a turn, you can use your sneak attack again. So if you take Opportunist, that's going to be a 2nd rank power. So let's grab into that. Opportunist. So now you can sustain or even lock Opportunist if you want, but as a rogue, you only have 1 attack per round. So that's not super useful. You could get rid of that attack and have 2 reactions over the course of the round, so you have 2 opportunity attacks. So you end up having the same amount of attacks per round, and as a rogue, it's not overstacking your sneak attacks. you still only have those 2 attack actions per round that you're making right now, but you're setting yourself up to be more of a reactionary. You can't use teleportation effects as reactions, but this does allow you to, it's an example of you having a higher rank sustained effect that you can lock, and at 13th level, since you have 4 ranks, if you lock down 2 of those, you still have 2 ranks of power that you can use. So you automatically can teleport 20 feet, plus then you could go back to using elemental resistance to add on each round. When you use a bonus action, you can tack on an elemental resistance. Now you're preset to automatically jumping 30 feet instead of just 10 feet. And again, you get your sneak attack at the end of it. That's your 13 level right there. That's actually pretty straightforward, but there's more we can do. So let's see. You get 12 powers. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is all the powers that we really need up to 9th level for us to be able to have a bunch of goodness that we can use, but it requires the rogue to be 13th level. So this is this is teleport pouncer builds that we have. So I want to look at another thing that we have available to us, a maneuver that we have starting at 2nd rank, which is hold on, it's 3rd rank. Sorry, that's 9th level. 3rd rank is Flicker Pounce. So you can teleport up to 30 feet to a space within 5 feet of a creature that you can see, and you can make a weapon attack against it. If the attack succeeds, you can choose to teleport back to your original position. If the attack fails, you don't teleport the second time. So Flicker Pounce, it costs 3 mana. It's a maneuver. You can use it as an action or a bonus action. It allows you to teleport to a location. You can then make a melee attack something within 5 feet of you. If you succeed in the attack, you teleport back to your original position. So this is not automatically triggering this is not automatically triggering advantage to your attack. So it doesn't automatically give you sneak attack, but it does allow you to flicker. So let's add in Flicker Pounce at 3rd. Maneuver equals Flicker Pounce. Now I can also take a feat. What's the cost benefit of 3 mana for Flicker Pounce on a rogue that has the mobile feat? Let's see. Let's look at the mobile. Okay, let's look at the mobile feat. You are exceptional speed and agility. You gain the following benefits. Your speed increases by 10. Okay. When you use the dash action, difficult terrain doesn't cost any extra movement on that turn. Okay. When you make a melee attack against a creature, you don't provoke attacks of opportunity from that creature for the rest of the turn, whether you hit or not. When you make a melee attack against a creature, well, it's a melee attack, so that would free you up from being hit. Teleportation doesn't trigger opportunity attacks. So you can hit something and then you can teleport away. Teleportation, moving away from a target using teleportation, does not trigger an opportunity attack. So you could flicker strike in. If you screw up your attack and don't hit, if you have the mobile feat, then you'd be able to walk away without provoking an attack of opportunity. So jump 30 feet, hit, and then walk away. Or jump, hit, jump away. Either way, up to you. It's still that 30-foot reach. So mobility, yeah, mobility is a great backup. And we can... Do we have mobile added? Mobile should be part of our feat, but I may have missed it. So let's see. I don't believe I have mobile in here. That's surprising. Okay, well, let's just add that in. That's a good... Thank you. I can't believe I don't have that. I'm going to have to sweep through these feats again. But, yep, mobility. There you go. Mobile. That is a feat that you could decide to learn. So, thank you for that. This is why these things are so useful. You are certainly welcome to shout out anything. And I will happily either explain how it works or realize I don't have it integrated yet and add it. Making stronger documents all the time. Thank you for that. That's great. Let's see. So what can we do? Oh, great. We were talking about feats. Let's go down to a meta power feat, which is efficient power, which is choose a power you have learned of 2nd rank or higher. Reduce the rank and amount of mana to channel the power by 1. So we have 12 powers that we can know. We can reduce the cost of Flicker Pounce -1. That is called there. Now Flicker Pounce only costs 2. So it's much cheaper to use it now. Let's see. Sustain. But we still have to gain that at 9th level. Let's see what we can do to make that Flicker Pounce more reliable. That is probably going to be an exploit. So let's go take a look at some exploits here. I think we have something. Check, Overrun, Natural Hunter, Swift Tools, Tactical, Unnerving Focus, Veterinary, Unnerving Focus, Tactical Assessment, Swift Tools, Resilient, Proselytizer, Natural Hunter, Overrun, Master Burglar, Inquisitive, Ground Fighter. When you're making a grappling check, okay, that affects grappling checks. Extended attack, you're making a melee attack, your reach increases by 5 feet. Increase, you can roll a power die. That's not what we need. Commanding presence, not what we need. Ambush, not what we need. Then we'll have to go down to reactions. Feint. As a reaction, when you miss an attack roll, you can roll again, potentially turning the miss into a hit. So, at worst, we have Feint. 1 reaction. So now, if we flicker... hold on. Feint. As a reaction, you can roll again. Where is the... I could swear we have something more juicy than that. Hold on. Oh, I think this is... Hold on. Blind Sense, Cliff Runner, Fast, Ranged Assault, Trap Springer, Close Quarter, all melee attacks gain grappling. Nope. Cloud Strider, Deadly Presence. Nope. Mind Sense, Opportunist, Unnatural Resistance, Weapon Resistance, Daunting Presence. Make a bonus action. Make 2 weapon attacks. Haste, Ghostwalker, Indestructible. Holy Hannah. Yeah, we don't have anything that just gives you advantage on attacks automatically. That's fun. It has to either be a part of something. We don't have something that just gives you advantage. You get to re-roll again. That's fun. I did not realize I had that. I'm going to double check that real quick. There may be a maneuver in here that allows you to make an attack with advantage. I think that's true. But that doesn't work with Flicker Pounce. So, let's see. Generate, Shunt, Lift, Cursed, Rally, Swift Resuscitation, Vanish, Mobility, Healing, Goad, Flatten, Distract. Target creature you see within 30 feet makes Charisma save fail equals no Charisma. Okay, no. Curse of the Muddled Mind. Curse of the Eyeless. Curse of the Muddled Mind. Nope. I'm going to catch up on these comments in a second. Coordinated attack, you can empower a target. You can see reaction, makes an attack, rolling a 1, power die or channeling, and the highest value. You gain... Save succeeds, you sense the creature. Bonus attack. Maneuver, unstoppable, first strike. Empowered synergy. Wait. There it is. Precise attack. You can make an attack with advantage and roll 1 power die per mana channeled, adding the highest result. The highest roll to your result. What is that? Fucking sweet. That is an exploit. There it is. I knew it existed. Where did you go? I just saw it. Hold on. Precise attack. There we go. And it's second ranked. Oh, that's great. So 2 exploit equals precise attack. So the way that exploits work is exploits modify your die rolls or actions that you're already taking. They stack independently of, like, say, a strike power. You have a hard cap of your max channel limit. It's like you can't channel a power at 13th level with more than 4 mana. But, like, you could make you could use a strike. So you can make an attack. You could channel. You don't channel strike damage unless you actually hit. So you could, like, make your attack roll, channel precise attack through that. That is a separate instance. Then when you actually end up hitting, you can then use your strike power as additional mana spend. So you could potentially spend, even though your max cap on mana channeled is 4 at 13th level, you could burn 6 mana in that attack with precise attack and then 4 damage, 4 mana to a ramped up strike effect. So we definitely want to add precise strike, and I'm going to be so bold as to recommend -1 for efficient power, precise attack. I'll catch up in a second. 1, 2. So now that buys down the cost of precise attack down to 1 mana. So you can do your flicker strike for 1 mana. Flicker strike, where'd you go? Flicker strike is 2 mana, and then you can make an efficient power out of it to gain sneak attack when you arrive on your teleport. It'll cost you a total of 3 mana to do it, but if you don't automatically have advantage on your attack from it, this allows you to pick it up. Comments, idea. Let's see. I think it's good that there isn't something that just straight gives you advantage. Rogue martial powers keeps the thing, the proc rogue sneak attack in the same. Well, it's expensive though, so like you only have 13 mana. If you get rid of your sneak attack dice, you have 20 total. But that means you can only do this a number of times, and it's eating up your powers. Where are we at right now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're at 10 so far, and we have a total of 12 that we can gain. Idea: when the rogue teleports to the enemy, they're invisible until they make the hit. So invisibility is worth 1, or if it's worth 1 mana if it lasts 1 round. It's worth 2 mana if it can be sustained with no end. So if we're going to have a teleportation effect, which is typically a like Misty Hop is a 2nd level spell, so that's 2 mana basically. If we're comparing apples to apples, it's going to cost you 2 mana, and it's going to cost you 2 mana for the invisibility, or potentially just 1. So the way that you're framing it, it would be when you teleport, it would cost you 2 mana, and then 1 more mana to stay invisible upon arrival on teleportation, and that would be it. If you would allow them to have an additional sneak attack, like if you allow them to have an attack upon arrival, that would obviously neutralize invisibility immediately. But yes, we could absolutely do that. We could even have a exploit effect that would read basically something like this. It'd be like 1 exploit. It would be what would we call that? Like it would be the effect would basically be when after when you teleport, you are invisible until the beginning of your next turn, or when you make an attack, period. And then it would be something like hidden step. That's basically what I would do. And that's not a bad thing. It requires you to teleport, which is kind of makes this a trap power to learn, because you have to have access to teleportation somehow, which you can obviously buy into at 9th level. But it's a cheap ability that doesn't give you much advantage unless, of course, unless, of course, you were to, say, take Paladin of Vengeance or Ancients, which gives you Misty Step as a 2nd level spell at 5th level. So this would permanently be on your list. It would cost you 2 mana to cast it, and then you'd have the 1 level exploit to give you the invisibility on top of it. So it's not a great buy, but like if you have Misty Step as a Fey Touch class, as a Fey Touch feat at 1st level, that you would automatically get Misty Step, then you automatically have Misty Step. So by the time you get to 5th level, you'd be able to start paying for you. Like a ranger would automatically have Misty Step added to their kit, or a fighter, or anyone that takes that feat would automatically have Misty Step added to their features. That would be something they could spend 2 mana on to use whenever they want, essentially, right? So then you would be able to definitely make use of Hidden Step on top of that, but it would cost you, since it's an exploit, it would be separate from burning that feat for Misty Step. So those two things can actually work together, even though like at 5th level you'd have a max cap limit of 2. Since it's an exploit, it works on a separate circuit than your sustained or your maneuver or your strikes. Okay? If that works, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's a great idea. That absolutely works. So let's see. I'm thinking about a Dimir Thief build extension of this, where you're dealing with like blue-black, assassin, shadow rogue type of things to do. But we got here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Where are we at? We're at 110 right now. Let's look at, I'm going to switch gears real quick. There's 2 feats that are open, so let's say we take Ambush, which is an exploit, which is whenever you make an ability check that can use stealth, or when you're rolling initiative. You can roll 1 power die per mana channeled, adding the highest result to the highest roll to your result. So if at 13th level we're rolling a D8, you could add that D8 to your stealth skill check. Or you could add that D8 roll to your initiative, which is super useful. So I would say at this point, 1 exploit equals ambush is pretty damn useful. For that comment, I am, just to wrap around back to that, I am okay with a second rank power costing you 2 mana to be able to get advantage on a single attack. It's expensive to do, and it's per use. So anytime you want to guarantee yourself that advantage, that's a pricey thing to do. Even if you buy it down, it costs you 2 known powers to be able to drop the cost down to 1 mana, but you still have to be above 5th level to get it. So you can't really just dip in to grab it. It requires a commitment. I'm okay with that, and so far I haven't had any problems. So I'm going to drop that on my on our 17th level rogue as a play. You know what? Honestly, come to think of it, our rogue has the ability to do that, and he does use it occasionally, but only if he doesn't have flanking set up with somebody already. So he does occasionally use it. That's right, and it comes in handy when it comes in handy. But it's something he has to pay to use. So I don't think it's caused a problem yet. But if you wanted to build a creature, if you wanted to build a character and use it for a while and report back to me if you find it being a problem at all, I would certainly welcome the input. But at my own table, at 17th level, hasn't proven to be a problem yet. We have 1 exploit left. So I want to buy, I think it's a maneuver. Oh wait, no, I think it's a high rank exploit. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's First Strike that I want, and I believe that can't be a maneuver. Hold on, First Strike, there it is, a 3rd rank power. Okay, so instead of rolling initiative, If an enemy is within range of your weapon attack, you can make an attack roll against that enemy instead. The result of the roll is your initiative count, in addition to dealing any damage if the attack succeeds. That is pretty fun. And that's a 3rd rank, so this would be the last. First strike. That's an exploit. It costs you 3 mana to use it anytime you want to. But again, that's basically a 3 mana spend every combat. So first strike, and then you're going to like this. If we take this rogue at 13th level, we have access up to 4th rank powers. Powers don't get higher than 4th rank. So you have at 13th level, you have access to everything that's in this book, but at 17th level, your max channel limit is 5. So you're able to channel more than what the like Swift Quiver, for instance, and Steel Wind Strike from Tasha's Everything or whatever. Those are 5th level spells that you sustain to give you extra attacks. Or with Steel Wind Strike, it's an instant effect. It's a 5th level spell. It costs you 5 mana to use it. We don't have anything that stacks up that high. But let's see. First strike, and then the piece of resistance that we could pick up, like at 14th level when we gain another power. We could go down into, it's an exploit, Assassinate. When you deal damage with a weapon attack to a target that has yet to act in combat or is unaware of your attack, you automatically deal maximum damage, including any additional damage dice, such as a sneak attack or when you're channeling a strike power. It costs you 4 mana to do this. It doesn't increase the amount of damage that you can deal at all. It just makes sure that the die roll that you have is always your best. I have concerns about like assassination mixing with crits. Like crit fishing assassin builds on rogues is dangerous, just because the ridiculous amount of damage that you could potentially do. But I'm happy with Assassinate as a 4 mana cost. You're not going to be able to do it a lot. It's just that when you hit, you're going to hit hard. And when you're using sneak attack, that gets really useful, but it's super expensive. Or if you're lucky enough to crit, you want to keep an eye out for when you crit. Then you can throw this exploit on top of your crit, so you can hype up that strike damage if you want to. But it's going to cost you like 7 or 8 mana to get that one pop. It's expensive, but anyone can use it. Of the word, thank you. I'm pretty happy with how some of these are written. Some of them are probably good to go, but a lot of them are still under the revision. Like every week, I'm picking at things, I'm moving things around, I'm rearranging stuff. Like for example, a good example of that is regeneration. Regeneration used to be a sustained effect that allowed you to regain a number of hit points equal to your proficiency bonus each round. The problem with that is out of combat, it's a bag of rats. So we had to convert it to being something that could eat up an action economy as well as have some sort of resource cap on it. So what we did instead is we made it a maneuver, which means you could use that as an action or as a bonus action. You could potentially use it twice in the same round if you wanted to. So regeneration now words as when you channel this maneuver, you can spend a number of hit dice up to your proficiency modifier, and it's a 2nd rank, which you gain at 5th level, which means you'd have a max PB of 3. So you can, of your 5 levels, you could take 3 of your hit dice to regain a number of hit points equal to the maximum result of the dice spent. So if a barbarian took regeneration as a bonus action, you would be able to spend those 3d12 and get 36 hit points back. In addition, as a kicker, if you spend 2 or more hit dice this way, you can also end 1 disease or one of the following conditions: blinded, deafened, or poisoned. That's basically lesser restoration. Starting at 9th level, when you spend 4 or more hit dice, that should be at 13th, because greater restoration is a 5th level spell. Starting at it would be 11th level. Hold on. 1, 5, 9, right, 13. So at 13th level, starting at 13th level, when you spend 1, 2, right, okay, that pans out. 13th level, your PB bonus is +5. So when you spend 5 or more hit dice this way, you can also end one of the following effects. 1 curse, including an attunement to a magic item, any reduction to 1 ability score, 1 effect reducing your hit point maximum, or 1 degree of exhaustion. Normally, Greater Restoration would allow you to end paralysis, but if you're paralyzed, you can't use powers. So if you're unable to take actions, you can't use powers. So it's illogical to allow you to be able to end paralysis when you can't take any actions to end paralysis. We nicked that part, which is why I had to spell all of it out instead of saying when you spend 5 dice or more, you can use the effects of a Greater Restoration, because not all of the effects of Greater Restoration actually apply to your character because you can't get rid of your own paralysis. There you go. We have things that let you be immune to paralysis further down the row, but not end it. So that's an example of something that we had previously had as a sustained power that ended up not panning out properly. So we liked the idea of having regeneration. We just needed to respin it so it would do something differently. So that's an example of, slow cooking a project like this to allow you to see how things, like if I had released it with regeneration, it's like, that's a bag of rats. This thing is broken. You obviously don't know what the hell you're doing, kid. So I'm just taking the time needed to study each of these things to see how they break down. But that would be my future proofing. So that is the rogue build. The other teleportation build that I want to highlight today is actually a lot more obvious. So I saved it for last to make it, because it shouldn't take nearly as long to make this thing work. And this is something that I had initially introduced in the Elemental Key book, that if you check down the Spell Point bundle that I have in my description, you'll see Elemental Key. Let's just go to DMsGuild here real quick and look at Elemental Key. There you go. Here's the book that I created, and like I said, all my books are full preview, so check it out. And it's a 14-page document. Here you go. This is about Elemental Key is blowing out the way of the 4 elements into its own half-casting class that uses key short rest recovery, but has a stack of 50 different elemental themed spells, as well as the way of the 4 element disciplines that were from the player's handbook, to have air, earth, fire, water options for your magic paradigm. Like if you have only air mana or air key, then you'd be able to cast like fly, gaseous form, lightning bolt. But like if you had a blend of air and fire key as your 2 main themes, then like you could use lightning bolt with either air or fire mana. But you'd also pick up things like fireball, wall of fire, storm spheres for both of them, flame strike, immolation, fun stuff. And if you're using color mana paradigm, you've got blue, red, and green mana. So like if you wanted to pick up blue, then you have like snowball. Blue also is like water whip. Fireball is red, etc., etc. So this just blows out the element into 4, but it has a number of just variant class features for monk in general. And one of the features that we have here, this is worth looking at. I mean, if anything, just for the artwork, but you can check this stuff out on your own. But one of the things that we have in here is a whirlwind attack. And this is an older document that is going to be updated when Martial Powers is released. We can then bundle Elemental Key as something that you can use with Martial Powers. So going down to the monk class features, we can see it's the same feature, but we're changing its cost. Whirlwind attack at 5th level. It's an optional class feature. It reads the same way in both books. As an action, you can burn ki to attack enemies around you that you can see in a blur of motion. The whirlwind attack table below shows how many targets you can attack and how far from you each of these targets can be. Make a separate melee attack against each target using any combination of unarmed strikes or melee weapons you're holding and proficient with. Each target hit takes D10 damage for each key burned this way, up to your max key limit, minimum of one key. The type of damage you deal can be the weapon's type or a type of damage devoted to any key burned during the whirlwind attack. So, we gain this at 5th level. At 5th level, we have 2 targets that we can hit that are each up to 15 feet away from you. For example, a 13th level monk, which has a max key limit. A 13th level monk has a max key limit of 4 and gets 13 key on a short rest, right? So it can have up to 4 mana spent. At 13th level, you can target up to 4 targets. They can be up to 25 feet away each. And you have to burn 1 key to trigger this, but you could spend up to 4. If you spent 4, each target would take 4d10 force damage or weapon damage, or whatever type of damage you happen to be dealing. So, let's see. As an action, these are not attacks. This is its own action. So you don't have the ability to channel strikes on top of the damage that you're doing heal. That's a little bit too much action economy for damage value for the resources spent. So these things cap out. So like you could just spend 1 mana and hit, say, at 13th level, hit 4 targets for d10 damage each. Or you could spend 4 mana and do 4d10 damage each. And then at 17th level, you've got up to 5 targets that you can hit that are 30 feet apart from each of you. And then if you spend 5 key, it's going to be 5d10 damage. If you're familiar with Tasha's Cauldron to Everything, you know that Steel Wind Strike is a 5th level spell that allows you to target 5 creatures within 30 feet of you, dealing 6d10 damage each. This is basically a curve from level 5 to level 17 that deconstructs and builds a power curve for how Steel Wind Strike works, so that a monk, of all things, a monk gains access to Steel Wind Strike at 5th level. So if you're going for a true teleportation build, the most efficient path for you is going to be Monk 6, which gains Whirlwind Attack. As a class feature, you can spend as little as 1 mana equals 1d10 damage with whatever type of weapon you're dealing. You can automatically do that d10 to all targets within that reach for 1 mana. And then on top of it, after completing the Whirlwind Attack, you can burn 1 additional key to teleport to an unoccupied space within 5 feet of one of the targets you attacked. So we know that Whirlwind Strike, when you spend a 5th level spell slot, you can target 5 creatures, you can do 6d10 damage to any of them, and you can automatically teleport to within 5 feet of any of them. This deconstruction process ends up making Steel Wind Strike more expensive than it would have been for you to wait until 17th level as a ranger to gain access to it, right? This allows you to gain access to it at 5th level and scale up into it. It's not going to be at 17th level. It's not going to be as efficient as a ranger spending 5 mana to cast Steel Wind Strike themselves, but you gain all these benefits beforehand, and the teleportation becomes an option if you choose. So this allows you to have that pounce immediately. So this is at as low as level 6. And so we're looking at 6th level as a monk. You have 7 powers and 6 mana. So 6th level monk has rank 2, mana 6, short rest, and known. How many? There's one more trick I want to show you guys on this. I know 7 powers. God, that's good. So we get Whirlwind Attack. Feature equals Whirlwind Attack. 1 to 2. Feature. The other thing I want to look at for this is the revised mechanics for Way of the Shadow. So, we rebuilt Way of the Shadow. I actually have a stream. If you look at my playlists for color mana variants, we rebuilt Way of the Shadow as a half-caster, the same as we have for Way of the Shadow, but then I came up with this martial power system, so I put publishing both the Sun Soul and the Shadow Way of the Shadow builds. I put those on hold. So once this publishes, I can put those out as basically coupons to reduce the cost of getting things. So it will publish eventually, but for now we have Dark Stalker starting at 3rd level. As an action, you can spend 1 key to create a sphere of shadows that emanates from you in a 10-foot radius. The sphere is centered on you, moves with you, and it lasts for as long as you maintain concentration or until you are incapacitated or die. The shadows turn dim light within 10 feet of you into darkness, and bright light in the same area to dim light. In addition, I should put a period here and there. In addition, sound is dampened within the sphere, granting advantage on dexterity stealth checks while the sphere is present. The sphere of shadows affects spell level. The sphere of shadows effective spell level is equal to your proficiency bonus for determining if a light spell effect will dispel the sphere. So if you have a 3rd level darkness spell, a 4th level light spell would dispel that darkness spell. So this automatically scales. It only costs 1 mana to create it, but at 6th level, it's effectively a 3rd level spell. So you'd have to cast a 4th level light spell to get rid of this sphere of darkness. So there's a lot of added value there. On top of it, in addition, you can see normally in darkness, both magical and non-magical, to a distance of 120 feet. If any of this sounds familiar to you, it's probably because you've read the Twilight Cleric. I think it makes perfect sense, and I'm not the only one to think this, that Way of the Shadow should have Twilight Cleric mechanics as part of their Dark Stalker ability. So that's what we've implemented here. It's great quality of life. Maybe we'll see that in 1 D&D. It's certainly something they could have errated at any time with Tasha. It's an obvious improvement of life, so I just wanted to have that sit there. So, having said that, level 6, Shadow Step. At 6th level, you gain the ability to step from one shadow into another. When you are in dim light or darkness, I got just another 20 minutes here, and then I'll be done. So probably less if we can finish it up. So we're on the grind here. At 6th level, you gain the ability to step from one shadow into another. When you are in dim light or darkness, which is automatically whenever you're using Darkstalker, and you can lock this, so that sphere of darkness remains permanent on you, though your friends might not appreciate that. As a bonus act, you gain the ability to step from one shadow into another. When you are in dim light or darkness, as a bonus action, you can teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space you can see that is also in dim light or darkness. You then have advantage on the first melee attack you make before the end of the turn. So you could take Shadow Step. You have, with Darkstalker, you're always going to be in a 10-foot space of darkness. So if an enemy is within 10 feet of you, you could use Shadow Step as a bonus action. You can teleport. So Shadow Step would allow you to teleport to that location inside of your own bubble of darkness and have a free attack and have advantage with it. So what you can do is you can take 13 levels of Rogue and mix it with 6 levels of Monk. So you have access to Shadow Step. So whenever you're using the Swift Pounce class feature and you're inside of Shadow, let's see, as a bonus action, you can teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space you can see that is also in dim light. You can then have advantage on your first melee attack you make before the end of your turn. So you could combine Shadow Step with the Pounce ability. Here, Swift Pounce. Whenever you use a bonus action to channel a sustained power, you can teleport up to 10 feet. You must sustain the location you can see and make an attack with advantage immediately after teleporting. So if you're teleporting into darkness, your enemy is automatically going to have disadvantage, and you're going to have advantage over them. You have advantage on attacks against enemies when they can't see you. So Swift Pounce, the Shadow Step is always going to give a rogue advantage on their sneak attacks. So if you were to combine Way of the Shadow, 6 levels of Way of the Shadow, with 13 or 14 levels of Rogue, Martial Trickster, you're going to have 3 ways for you to be able to teleport, and all of those ways are either going to be free use. It's either going to be free for you to trigger a sneak attack, or it's going to cost you 1 mana to trigger a sneak attack. And when you are inside, and with a monk with the whirlwind attack, if everything is within that 10-foot area of you, which isn't a lot, granted, but it does give you an 8. You could potentially have up to 8 targets that are surrounding you. So 5, 10. That's actually you can have up to 18 targets around you at 10 feet away. So you'd be able to just do a 5-foot hop to be able to attack any of them, and you would have advantage on your attacks. That would allow you to then set up, when you teleport to the next location, you could then use your bonus action to make a sneak attack against that target. Anyway, there you go. So that's the quick build. I think I can probably start drafting these things up into more elegant presentations, like one sheets, and start putting them on my Patreon for people to look at as just like freebie things. But I don't think I'm going to start doing that until I actually publish this thing. So right now we're kind of having a conversation about building up a catalog of different cool shit we can do, so that when the book publishes, we can start dropping ideas for people to look at, like Boros Swift, like Swift Blades, Dimir Mind Spies, Azorius. What are those things? I'm blanking the name on some of the Azorius stuff, but there's a lot of cool stuff we can do there. Anyway, am I caught up on notes? One of these days I want to run a campaign that just uses all this stuff. Awesome, thanks. 5-color martial powers, the vehicles. Yeah, I am, my current group, we're 17th level. When our campaign ends, we're going to switch into a Spelljammer campaign, and we've been using color mana for years. So we're going to have an Eberron Spelljammer space opera color mana campaign. That using all the things. As a DM, I build these tools because these are things I want players to have access to in my games. And if these things are things that DMs think are cool, or if players think they're cool, they can convince the DM to play them. But if you're a DM and you think this shit is cool, you can introduce these things into that and start building your own tools with them. Which is why we want to have a DM section in here, which is what we've been working on casually on the side. DM tools on how can a DM keep up with what these things allow you to do, and we had a couple sessions ago, we were building out DMs creating NPCs, like boss fights and different type of creatures that can use martial powers themselves. So we had like a small little stack of like a CR 1/4 minion skeleton having a bonus attack and having mobility, a ogre having like extra reach, being able to grapple you and restrain you when he does so, a T-Rex being able to bite and hold you in his maw and hit anybody that tries to run around inside his space. A bunch of fun stuff, tripping attacks, a beholder using martial powers. You got a stack of shit here, and then we have a CR 18 ancient red dragon using a bunch of powers as well. And it just kind of gets ridiculous. But a DM can just slap on a stack of their favorite kits. So what we can do is one of these future sessions, we're going to start building power kits that you can just staple onto creatures. We can take the 4th edition, for example, like the solo boss would have like hypertunistic and opportunist. And we would have a flurry of attacks, so that it has more action economy to be able to do more things to your group as a single creature. And we have like a brute kit that gives them a bunch of resistances and eventually like indestructibility and stuff like that. You can have artillerists, like the different roles that creatures play in 4th edition. We can convert those into power kits that you can just staple on to any creature at any time. It's like this Illithid is now an artillerist. illithid. It has a shitload of ranged attacks, and all of its stuff is going to be psychic damage, for instance. So keep an eye out for that. That will be in one of these future sessions. We'll start these examples of individual creatures building these kits is the precursor to us building those what we call them kits. So a power kit to apply to any creature in your game to automatically escalate the threat that creatures have if you want to make it a more memorable fight. So like a goblin could be a striker goblin, an artillery striker, an artillery goblin, a tank goblin. I think they call them brutes in 4E. A brute goblin, a support goblin, and then a boss fight goblin. Like you have those 5 kits. So you have 5 ranks of 5 different kits. So we have 25 kits that you could offer at different tiers of gameplay to be able to make memorable enemies out of anything. You can grab 1 or 2 of them off the list, or all of them if you want to. And basically creatures can just basically use them like once per round. They can use these things, but they don't have any limited use of them as often as they want, just 1 per round. That's the idea behind that. So, Spelljammer Space Opera on a cruise ship. Right, like Fifth Element, right? No kidding. Yeah, so that's kind of our spiel today. We were just looking at some different ways that we could create Pouncer builds. Another one that we can do, like I mentioned earlier, the Paladin of Vengeance and the Paladin of Ancients, they both get Misty Step, which is a teleportation effect that you gain at 5th level. It'll cost you 2 mana to use it. At 5th level, they have 10 mana. So it's not that you can't use a shitload of it, but it's something that you have there. And then you can take any of these powers that fold into it to build out you can mix spells and powers. If you're a paladin or if you're a ranger, you can freely mix any number of known powers, or you have to learn a spell and you keep that spell for your full level. You can't just prep them and swap them out every day. A DM can allow that if they want to, but as listed, it's if you're going to mix powers and spells, then you become a known caster, like the ranger is currently. The paladin would become a known ranger. Known ranger, I like that. And then of course the artificers, which we talked about, like around episode 10 maybe, about how they can't actually learn powers, but they can build devices that are infusions. They can infuse them with power, so you can make like a sword of stunning strikes, for instance. And so you infuse that weapon with the stun strike power. So every time you attack with it, you can then channel through the weapon. You can burn your mana to, instead of casting a spell, to channel a strike power that you know, for instance. And then warlocks, they can't learn powers instead of spells, but they can learn powers as invocations. So every time you gain an invocation, you can decide whether you're going to use the normal invocation list that's available for warlocks, or you can instead learn any power at the same rank. So like a warlock, like a 12th level warlock, for instance, can know up to a 3rd rank power. At 13th level, even though a 12th level warlock can cast 6th level spells, this is power. These are channeling powers, not casting spells. So when you pick it up as an invocation, you can now spend your mana on powers with exploit, sustain, whatever you want. The full stack is available to you, but you learn those instead of invocations. So, and again, if you want to play with the tools that I make available, we go with Spell Point Warlock. And here we are. This has about 420 sales. 420 has about 420 sales so far. This, as a pay what you want, this is probably going to be my first gold title. But again, this is, well, it's got a few ratings and they're all pretty favorable. That's cool. But yeah, Spell Point Warlocks. This, again, it introduces a mana system. You can either use the spell point mechanics from the DMG. This gives you the same spell point progression that the DMG would allow. Or if you're using martial powers and 5 color mana spell point variant rules, you can use the universal spell point system that we have, which is basically 20 levels, 20 mana, and then your Arcanum points can be converted into additional mana if you want. If you don't want to use your 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th level spells and instead just want to spam the fuck out of martial powers, you've got 20 points that can refresh on a short rest, and then you have 40 points worth of long rest mana that you could use on any of these powers that you want. So you could have all of your invocations be spent, 12, 13 invocations, be spent on acquiring different martial powers, and you would have a total of 60 mana without any short rests. Or if you take one short rest a day, that's 80 mana, and if you take 2 short rests, that's a total of 100 mana that you would potentially have available to you to completely just devastate stuff with. So yeah, multi-classing into full casters still gives your characters a shitload of power. But they like a sorcerer doesn't gain any ranks in power ever. So like if you were like a 13th level sorcerer, first level paladin, you'd be stuck with only first rank powers, but you would have about you'd have a crap load. Hold on, let's go find. Now I'm curious. A first level paladin only has 2 mana. But if we use the universal spell points and high magic, and then we look at a sorcerer, which is a full caster. Again, this is all 100% preview, so be welcome to take a look at this stuff. This is like around 380 sales, so it's making its way towards gold as well, but it'll definitely get there. Full caster, a 13th level sorcerer would have 48 mana, plus it would have its 13 sorcery points, so it would have a total of 61 mana, plus the 2 that I would get from Paladin. So it would have a total of, as a 14th level character, it would have 63 mana, but you would only be able to channel 1 mana at a time. Like, you'd have a fuckload of Divine Smites, but you're not going to be doing more than 2d6 damage with any of them. So you can spam all day your strikes, it's just you can't ramp up the strike because it's bound. Strikes are bound to your power level, not your spellcasting level. We make that flip so that you have to, if you dive into that full caster curve to try to cheese out spell points, you're not going to be able to do it. Warlock is the only exception to that. The Warlock is always the exception, but the Warlock has to use our power system as well. You get rid of the Eldritch, the Eldritch Strike, and you swap that for our martial power progression table instead. So it uses the same D6, D8, D10 mechanics that all the other martial power characters do as well. Anyway, that's I think we've hit our wall for the day. So I gotta check out. I am going to be back on tonight. It's just about 2:00 now, so I'm going to be back on in about 5 hours, and we're going to do some Eberron map cartography. We're painting the underground dungeon for that. We're going to be back again next week on Monday. Maybe we'll build out some creature power kits to these different roles that monsters play from 4E. So we'll crack open some 4E content and look what those different roles are, and we'll start building kits, DM kits, to apply to creatures, just like we did with those example monsters. If anyone has any suggestions about what kind of builds that they want, you're certainly welcome to ask. Like if there's a particular class or subclass that you want to look at, or like a type of action. Like if you wanted to, like we could dive into Opportunist, for example. That might be something that I want to do next week, honestly, is look at the sustained power Opportunist, which is, let's take a look at it again real quick. While this power is sustained, when you take the attack action, you can forgo any number of attacks during your turn to gain an equal number of additional reactions that can be used to make opportunity attacks before your next turn. This is a massive zone control option that you can just opt into by taking Opportunist as a sustained power at 2nd rank, so this comes online at 5th level. And then you can take a bunch of strikes, maneuvers, reactions, and exploits that allow you to stop, drop, or lift character or enemies that you're fighting, so that you can create a zone of control that prevents enemies from moving past you into the back line, to be able to create that zone of control to be a true tank. So I think that might actually be a really fun thing that we'll do next week. True tanks building, and let's say we go with either Barbarian or the Fighter. So we'll take Fighter and Barbarian, and we'll build zone control tanks next week with those. So that's what we'll be back doing. So like, subscribe, hit the bell. Be welcome to hit me on Twitter at Phil Kearney. if there's any kind of builds or classes that you want to look at, or if you're curious about like how would you express this sort of a character, blah de blah. Drop some comments down. Drop the request down in the comments of this. Obviously, I'll see it when I sweep through my YouTubes. Be welcome to shout out at me in Discord, and we're just gonna keep building stuff. So we're kind of in this float demonstration mode and slowly picking at efficiencies and balance until we're done with the Spelljammer and we're done with the Eberron adventure. Once those are off of our plate, this is our primary project. So I expect this to step forward and be in the layouts and artwork production probably in July or August. I think we're probably going to be able to get this off to an editor in May or June, get it back and ready to go for us in probably July, maybe August, we'll see. But this will be our Q3 project, and we'll have it published probably by October, maybe November at worst. And at that time, we'll also be doing mass combat mechanics and converting the Dragonlance campaign and the Dragonlance board game into our mass combat mechanics. So we'll be doing Spelljammer tomorrow morning, Eberron tonight. This Saturday, we'll be doing Spelljammer page layouts. We got a lot going on, so if you're interested in design yourself or looking at how do RPG supplements get built, or if you're a D&D or MTG enthusiast, stick around, hang out, say hey, and I'll see you guys on the other side. So I got to bail. I'll be back in 5. Catch you later.